Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, September 1st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Schools across San Diego County are allowed to welcome back students, but many districts are sticking with remote learning for now. Today, the county announced 6 more people have died from the coronavirus and 267 new cases. It comes a day after gyms, salons, restaurants, and others resumed indoor operations. That new state guidance prompted 11 professors at UC San Diego to send the county a letter suggesting the reopenings be delayed until October 1st. UCSD professor of medicine Dr. Robert Schooley says the group wants to see lower risk facilities open first to prevent reclosure.
Without masks on are where the real risk is. And these activities now include things like restaurants and bars, gyms if the gyms are operating without masks. There are a lot of other things that we pull back on that are probably safe to do now. I'd feel fine getting my hair cut with a mask on. I'd feel fine if I were a woman going to the salon and having my hair done with a mask on, but it's the indoor activities without masks that concern us.
The group worries that opening too quickly will put us back where we were when the county was put on the state watch list in mid-July. At least 41 students and staff at San Diego State's main campus have tested positive for coronavirus. Nearly half those cases have been reported since school began just last week. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says the university is cracking down on reports of campus organizations and students not following the rules.
We all kind of saw it coming. It's not a matter of if, it's more of a matter of when that it's going to happen. And we already see it starting to happen. It's only going to get worse.
Many students we talked to today say San Diego State officials announcing more than a dozen new coronavirus cases among students is not surprising.
I feel like it's expected because obviously we're in college and a lot of people aren't going to follow the rules.
I can tell that people are definitely not taking it seriously.
Across campus, SDSU has signs up encouraging face coverings and social distancing, but students say the school's party reputation is carrying through the pandemic.
I have seen a lot of large crowds and a lot of people aren't being responsible.
Huge groups of kids, no masks, walking around. I mean, it's crazy.
A lot of people walking around, and that's just like it every year. It's like there's always going to be parties, and there's not much you could really do to stop those.
SDSU officials say over 3 days they issued nearly 4 dozen notices of coronavirus violations to students and campus organizations. Officials say full investigations are underway. In the meantime, the school is hiring private security guards to help enforce the rules.
I think it'll grow unless there's really a crackdown. I don't see it stopping at any time.
This week, 13 new cases are being announced, up from 7 the week before, all while SDSU is starting their fall semester with a partial reopening of campus for labs and other classes.
I just heard that Chico State got sent home yesterday after a week of being there.
Up north, Chico State just decided to move its entire fall semester online after nearly 30 cases were reported on campus. Students are hoping that does not happen here.
I mean, I kind of expect to be sent home, but I don't know at this point.
I kind of just want to stay away from a lot of people as much as I can and just stay distanced.
Among newly reported cases, all but 3 are from students living off campus. None of the students attended any in-person classes, but one did briefly visit the bookstore. University officials say at this time they are not considering transitioning in-person classes online. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Teachers in San Diego County South Bay are demanding more rigorous safety measures for reopening schools. Union leaders from across 4 South Bay districts gathered today for a virtual press conference. They emphasized that their neighborhoods are still seeing high infection rates.
We want it to be safe for everyone. We have a moral duty, we have an ethical duty to protect our students, our families, all of our workers, and we can only open only when it's safe.
Some zip codes in the Chula Vista and Sweetwater school districts have infection rates more than double that of the county average. Teachers' unions said they understand the need for students to get back on campuses, especially those with disabilities, but say some districts have yet to come up with solid plans. The Sweetwater Union High School Board has fired its superintendent. The board voted 4-1 during a closed session to terminate Karen Janney, 2 months after a state audit found evidence of potential financial fraud in the district. This same board hired Janney 5 years ago on a promise to restore trust in the district after it was embroiled in a wide-ranging corruption scandal. Janney had been on paid leave since June. State lawmakers reached a last-minute deal to offer relief to Californians struggling to pay rent. However, KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us that thousands of tenants could still face eviction as soon as tomorrow.
The deal falls far short of what tenant advocates and small landlords were hoping for, but it does bring some relief to tenants who were unable to pay their rent since the pandemic hit in March. The deal turns missing rent from between March and August 31st into civil debt, meaning they can't be the basis for an eviction. But it also requires that tenants pay at least 25% of their rent between now and February, even if they still have no income and their unemployment insurance can't cover that amount. Grace Martinez, a tenant advocate with the group ACE, says this will lead to an overwhelming amount of eviction cases working their way through housing courts, while the pandemic has not in the least subsided among low-income communities.
With this pandemic raging and where people are at risk of just being exposed, and this is not going to help stop the spread. And I think there's, a lot of concerns for just people's health and also, where are they going to live at this point?
A recent study found that over 40% of California's renters are currently unable to pay their full rent and are at risk of eviction. Instead of a blanket moratorium on evictions, which would avoid worsening California's homelessness crisis, Martinez says that the burden will now fall on tenants to provide paperwork and proof of how the pandemic has impacted them financially. For the most part, tenants will represent themselves in court.
Are there enough lawyers in order that on the tenant side that will actually be able to go to bat for them? And the answer is no.
The city of San Diego has an eviction moratorium in place until September 30th. But the state's housing courts will reopen tomorrow for the first time in months, meaning that eviction cases that precede the moratorium and evictions where tenants are unable to prove sufficiently in court that they've been impacted by the pandemic will be allowed to move ahead. Advocates fear that California's homelessness crisis, already dire before the pandemic, will somehow worsen even further. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
This afternoon, the Center for Disease Control issued a nationwide eviction moratorium for those making under $99,000, citing the need to control the spread of the coronavirus. A representative for California's Judicial Council told KPBS that it is reviewing the CDC's order. The San Diego Unified School District will keep providing free meals for all students 18 years and younger. The U.S. Agriculture Department announced it is extending the free school meals program, which was set to expire in September. Families can drive through or walk up to any of the 82 meal pickup locations throughout the district, even if their child is not enrolled there. Breakfast and lunch are available Monday through Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Door knocking for the 2020 census is expected to end in San Diego on September 18th instead of the end of the month. People who haven't yet responded to the questionnaire will still be able to complete it online, by mail, or by phone. The Census Bureau revised its deadline so that the 2020 count would finish at the end of October, but then moved it up to the end of September. A group of cities, states, and civil rights organizations are suing to stop the Bureau from ending early. San Diego water managers are working with local researchers to understand how atmospheric rivers bring water to the region. Here's KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson.
The moisture-laden storm systems bring rain to Southern California, but too much rain can be damaging. Scripps Institution of Oceanography researchers hope to better understand atmospheric rivers, ARs as they call them, so they can predict when and where they'll hit.
We're in a climate where the annual precipitation can vary a lot from year to year.
Marty Ralph is the director of the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes. He says ARs are key rainmakers.
About 40 to 60% of California water supply comes from a few ARs each year.
Knowing when and where a storm will hit is valuable information for the San Diego County Water Authority. The authority can use that to release reservoir water ahead of a storm if that storm will bring significant rainfall.
And if we have more refined data on how to anticipate atmospheric rivers, we will be able to better operate our reservoirs to maximize the water supplies in our local supply reservoirs.
Orange County water managers are already using the information about atmospheric rivers. They're timing the release of water behind one dam so they can recharge local water supplies and then catch new water that comes in the form of rainfall. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Here's a look at our weather headlines. Well, it looks like seasonal conditions will continue here for another day or two, but then we'll start to see temperatures rising for the end of the week, and it looks pretty hot by the weekend. We'll continue to see our coastal clouds, but later in the week we'll see less of that as the marine layer shrinks. So coastal clouds will start to fade as the temperatures really start to rise. It's going to be really hot by the weekend, and excessive heat watches are going into effect here for the end of the week, and they'll continue over the weekend right through Monday evening. Look at that. They extend all the way to the coast. So get ready. It is going to get hot. Take a look at our temperatures tonight. Some clouds at Oceanside, 63, San Diego, 67, Ramona, 55, and El Cajon at 64. Mountain Laguna dips down to about 57. For tomorrow, well, we're dry, and the upper high just continues to build, and we'll still have another nice day, but after tomorrow, things will start to gradually get warmer. 76 in Oceanside, clouds give way to sun. San Diego's at 74. Borrego Springs 106. And here in Mountain Laguna around 80 with some hazy skies. Looking ahead, well, here it comes. That high pressure starts to strengthen, and with it, temperatures rising above average right to the coast. And there could start to be some records challenged and the risk of heat-related illness. That's why we have these heat watches in effect. You're going to have to hydrate, stay in the air conditioning, limit your time in the sunshine. So you can see our temperatures look good the next couple of days, but look at that. By the weekend, we're up near 90 degrees. It's hot. And in the interior valleys, it'll be sizzling. Temperatures this weekend up above 100 degrees. And as we take you to the mountains, it's warming up here too. We'll be close to 90. And then here in the deserts, you know it'll be sizzling. And there you can see it, 115 plus. Very hot over the weekend. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
President Trump announced his administration would provide millions of dollars toward law enforcement, public safety resources, and small business relief in Kenosha after the state of Wisconsin. The president visited Kenosha after a police officer shot and paralyzed Jacob Blake. Mary Maloney has more.
I'm about law and order.
President Trump brought his campaign message to Kenosha, Wisconsin, a city at the center of violent clashes over racial injustice.
These are anarchists, these are agitators, they're rioters, they're looters, they're bad people.
Protests erupted in Kenosha after a police officer shot Jacob Blake in the back 7 times. Before his trip, the president questioned the officer's actions.
Shooting the guy in the back many times, I mean, couldn't you have done something different? Couldn't you have wrestled him?
But compared similar police shootings to a golf match.
But they choke. Just like in a golf tournament, they miss a 3-foot.
You're not comparing it to golf because, of course, that's what the media
I'm
says.
saying people choke.
People panic.
Choke.
Yeah.
And people are bad people. Yeah, both.
In Kenosha, the president toured damage left behind from the unrest.
So we're going to help you, okay? We'll help you rebuild.
While Blake's family organized a peaceful gathering at the site of the shooting.
Conversations that African-American families have to have with their loved ones before they walk out the door tells you this is just not a rogue cop, but a systemic racism that we're talking about.
As Blake's family prayed for their loved one and their community to heal, the president praised law enforcement for quelling the violence.
Today I'm there for law enforcement and for the National Guard because they've done a great job in Kenosha They put out the flame immediately. As soon as they came in, boom, the flame was gone.
I'm Mary Maloney reporting.
2 bills aimed to hold police accountable for misconduct are now on Governor Newsom's desk. AB 1506 requires the state attorney general to investigate when police kill unarmed civilians. AB 1196 would ban the use of chokeholds and neck restraints by law enforcement statewide. The Sheriff's Department and police departments across San Diego County have already banned those tactics. When an officer fires their weapon or uses bodily force, we all expect to see the video. But the law doesn't say all the video. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregesser found this has created an opportunity for a private contractor to produce edited video packages and raised questions from activists and right-to-know advocates. A warning, this story contains graphic images.
It had been less than a month since the nation erupted in protest following the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer when, on June 27th, San Diego officers shot a man in downtown. Almost immediately, the news was up on social media, and protesters gathered at the scene and called for the release of the officer's body camera and other video of the shooting. Until last year, such calls would often fall on deaf ears. Police agencies weren't required to release video in a specific time frame, so in many cases, they would keep it secret indefinitely. But a new state law, AB 748, requires release of these videos within 45 days. In this case, the San Diego Police Department released a video within 24 hours.
Hey man, let me talk to you for a second. Stop! Stop! Stop!
But the video didn't include all the raw footage of the shooting. Instead, the department paid a private contractor $5,000 to produce a package chronicling the event. The complete digital evidence of the shooting hasn't been released yet, and likely won't be for at least a year or more when the full investigation into the shooting is complete. This approach does not violate the law, says police spokesman Lieutenant Sean Takeuchi.
What it says is release video essentially to the public so that the public understands what occurred. It doesn't say release of all video. It doesn't say release of all raw images.
But some open record advocates and activists like Tasha Williamson aren't satisfied.
If we're going to talk about transparency, I call Chief Nizlight the chief of transparency because he's not, right? So for me, if he's the chief of transparency, then release all the videos.
Takeuchi disputed any suggestion that the department would produce misleading videos.
No, because the video isn't about releasing what's the best. Releasing the video is about what happened.
It was produced by Vacaville-based Critical Incident Video. Former TV news journalist Laura Cole started the company last year and now has contracts with about 100 police agencies statewide.
We're going to review the body cam footage. We're going to ask for the 911 call if there was one. We're going to ask for witness statements. We're going to ask for any cell phone footage that might be taken by a bystander. We're going to ask for surveillance video, anything that would help bring context to the situation.
She then creates productions that usually last for about 10 minutes. San Diego's videos often start with a message from Police Chief David Nizlight describing the context of the shooting.
He delayed, moved slowly, and then an officer saw him reach for a gun.
The video uses maps, audio from 911 calls, and on-screen text to give more information before showing footage of the actual shooting. Cole says she produces objective accounts of the incidents, but she acknowledges that she's being paid by the departments, and they have final say over the version that is released to the public.
Obviously, at the end of the day, this is their video, so they could take something out or add something in that they wanted.
Cole says San Diego police and other departments will tell her what footage they want redacted before she starts editing, but she's never had a department order changes to a video after it's been produced.
They are being hired and paid, right, by the police department.
Bailing Shaw is the dean of the College of Communications at California State University, Fullerton. She says that doesn't make the company a truly objective outside source.
All of us are so inundated on a daily basis with information that having that information framed for us and contextualized for us is helpful to our understanding. However, because in some communities there has been a history of mistrust between community members and law enforcement, this is where you run into a challenge if there is a perception that somehow information may be framed in a way that is not supportive of people being able to fully and accurately draw their own conclusions.
San Diego police have released all the videos of their officers shooting people in the past year, except one. That should show an officer shooting a woman in her apartment in the East Village on May 23rd. Tomorrow, we'll explore the reasons why it hasn't been released. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
You could be summoned for jury duty again as the San Diego Superior Court gets ready to resume trials next month. Jury summons were mailed out this week asking potential panelists to appear at the downtown courthouse beginning on October 9th. A smaller pool is being called and new safety measures will be in place. Most court proceedings have been conducted through video conference during the pandemic. The San Diego Metropolitan Transit System is reducing fines for riding without a ticket. Starting today, citations will be $25 and passengers will have 120 days to pay. Or they could choose to perform 3 hours of community service instead. The MTS board approved the program in June after criticism that the transit authority was saddling people with unfair burdens during the pandemic. By the end of the month, Uber will require some riders to take mask verification selfies. It only applies to passengers who have been reported by a driver for not wearing a face covering, and if the next ride goes smoothly, they won't have to do it again. Drivers are already required to take selfies to verify they are wearing a face covering before they can pick up riders. Community fridges are popping up in cities across the country, offering free food and other essentials. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us one in North Park that has caused some concern among local businesses.
If you're driving through the intersection of 30th and Lincoln in North Park, you might do a double take at a pop-up next to Hangers Cleaners. An old refrigerator painted mustard yellow with shelves of dry goods and diapers next to it. A community fridge, to be more precise.
And I just wanted to extend it into my own community.
After seeing community fridges in other cities like LA and Oakland, Annie Lynn decided her own community of North Park needed that kind of help. She posted about it on Instagram, and the idea took off.
I made an Instagram and an email account associated with the community fridge, and in just 4 days, we have over 1,000 followers and supporters.
The fridge is next to the corner of Hangers Cleaners.
It sounded like a nice idea.
Gordon Shaw owns Hangers Cleaners. He says he was impressed with Lynn and her friends when they asked him if they could use the space. Shaw provides electricity for the fridge, and he sees the whole thing as a win-win. In addition to helping people in need, people are no longer sleeping there or using it as a bathroom.
And perhaps several people would exert peer pressure and everybody would kind of keep it clean.
The artwork on the front of the fridge is courtesy of Annie Lynn, and there's this, the whole idea, take some, leave some. There's been a lot of taking, and as you can see, there's been quite a lot of donating as well. But not everything has gone smoothly. Lynn says she asked for the support of North Park Main Street, the group representing North Park businesses. Executive Director Angela Landsberg told me she wasn't comfortable pledging that level of support just yet. Landsberg didn't want to go on camera, but she told me she's not against the idea per se. She just wants there to be safeguards in place to make sure the food that's donated is safe. Lynn says there haven't been any problems so far. Perhaps the honor system still works when it comes to neighbor helping neighbor.
Cool, that's looking a little more full. All right, that's what I like to see.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
KPBS has announced the 2020 selection for One Book, One San Diego in partnership with the San Diego Public Library. They called us enemy tells the story of actor George Takei. As a child, he was one of 120,000 Japanese Americans imprisoned by the U.S. government during World War II. Internment is also the theme for the children's book selection, Write to Me.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, protests for racial justice nationwide with small pockets of violence as the president visits Kenosha, Wisconsin. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a recap of today's top stories. Today, the county announced 6 more people have died from the coronavirus and 267 new cases. It comes a day after gyms, salons, and restaurants, to name a few, resumed indoor operations. 11 professors at UC San Diego sent the county a letter suggesting the reopenings be delayed until October 1st. At least 41 students and staff at San Diego State's main campus have tested positive for coronavirus. Nearly half of those cases have been reported since school began last week. Over 3 days, the university issued nearly 4 dozen notices of violations to students and campus organizations not following the rules. And state legislatures reached a deal to offer relief to Californians struggling to pay rent. It turns missing rent between March and August 31st into civil debt, meaning it can't lead to eviction. Tenants will be required to pay at least 25% of their rent between now and February. The city of San Diego has an eviction moratorium in place until September 30th, but the state's housing courts will reopen tomorrow. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.